Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Project Fairlady. Now, those of you that have been following the build would be well aware that I am now in the process of getting the car reassembled after paint. Anyone who's ever done this will tell you it is a massive job. There is so much to do, but it's all happening. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. As you can see, the car's starting to look, you know, reasonably complete. There's a lot of stuff that's been done. A lot of stuff I've either already got videos out on, depending where I slot this one in, or videos that will be coming out on. But what I'm doing today on the Z32 is I'm about to start reassembling the window mechanisms in the front doors. Now, you can see there the locks and handles and everything have already been refitted. All the door seals and whatnot have been refitted to the doors. So generally they're right about at the point where I really need to get some glass in them. So what I thought I'd do is I'll go through this process with you guys, because there are a few things I'd like to draw your attention to that I discovered on pulling all this stuff apart and really being able to throw a good eye over it. There's quite a bit we can talk about when it comes to the window mechanisms, the regulators, the rollers and all that sort of stuff. You'd be aware that I already did a video on replacing all the rollers on the glass, so that's all ticked off. But what I'm going to cover particularly on this is the tracks and the window regulators. So we'll head over to the bench and I'll get everything laid out and we'll have a look at all the bits and pieces. So what we'll be focusing on is the right hand side door, the driver's side door in Australia, and the driver's side door on all the JDM Z32 300zx's. So here's the glass. The only thing I want to touch on with the glass is on the roller replacement video I wasn't able to replace the upper roller up there because I really needed a new stud, which I didn't think I would. So I just basically replaced the roller and put on the old stud. The old studs were a little bit shabby looking from the outside. The black had gone off a bit, you know, they weren't really black. They were starting to look more a bit silver. But in the meantime, since that video, I've ordered some new studs and I've actually, you know, swapped those over now. So the entire window has all new, you know, rollers, studs, stops, the whole sort of shebang, which you would have seen on the window roller video. Anyway, I'll get this off this little makeshift bench and I'll get some of the window regulators on there. Alright guys, so this is my driver's side, oops, bump the camera. This is my driver's side door glass regulator as I pulled it off the car, other than the fact that it's been all completely cleaned up and it's been greased. All of the, you know, these areas, all the pivot points, everything's been greased. All of the track. Now this is something that you must remember. When you're changing the rollers on your door glass, you have to pull the tracks out of your door, the main tracks that run up the side. These guys here, this one that runs up here, there's another one that's sort of down in there, and then you've got your other one here. You have to get those out and clean them, because mine were full of really old dried out grease mixed with dirt and grit. They were just terrible. So changing all the rollers on the glass, they would have still been interacting with all that crud that was in the track. So it would have meant that the window movement probably still wouldn't have been completely smooth. Not due to the rollers, due to the crap in the tracks, and you would never know it's there unless you pull the tracks out and give them a good sort of a clean. Now, speaking of tracks, there are more tracks than what's just on the door. There are also the tracks that the regulator runs in. There's this main track here, and then there's this little track on here, right? Now, both of these, again, were absolutely chockers with really old, dried out, crusty grease and dirt. They were absolutely terrible. And what that's also done is it had worn the rollers that are attached to your regulator mechanism. Yeah, these are very, very worn on this. And the problem with that is they're not replaceable like they are on the window glass. So you can see these are like riveted in and then rounded over. So you know, they're not something that is replaceable. So if these get worn, then you have to replace your regulator mechanism. There's also the issue with this pivot point in the middle here getting worn. This one, it's got a bit of movement in it. It's not super bad, but it does have definitely some movement. So what I decided to do was get a new regulator for it, just because, being that it's the driver's door, it's had a lot of use in its lifetime, and it will be getting a lot more use. Now, having both of them out, having the passenger side door window regulator next to it for comparison, it's quite obvious that that one has a lot less wear on it than this one does. And there was also the issue with the motors. When you plug them into power, and the motors attach onto here, which I'll show you shortly, the motor in the passenger side sounded a lot healthier than the one in the driver's side, attached to the driver's side regulator. For obvious reasons, it's had a lot harder life. It's seen a lot more use. So as you can see, I've got a couple of new regulators here. One of them's got the motor, my old motor attached to it. So I thought, yeah, no worries, I'll get a new regulator and I will get a new motor. So I ordered a new regulator, and there's I think it was a 2-month or maybe even a 3-month wait on me getting one from Japan. They weren't that expensive. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. It might have been a couple hundred, $200 or $300 for a new regulator. But the motor, I thought, yeah, I'll get a new motor as well. But the motors were, I think they were somewhere between $700 and $800 just for the motor to attach to the, and that's Australian dollars, to attach to the regulator. And I'm not even sure if they're still available, because a lot of the time when you order it, you have to run the order through before Amiyama or Nissan Australia can work out whether or not it's actually still available in Japan. So that kind of money is just absolutely ridiculous. So I thought to myself, well, all right, firstly I thought, okay, well, maybe there's another window regulator I can adapt to fit it, or maybe a, you know, one from the left-hand side I might be able to adapt. Neither of those turns out. They're too different. There's nothing else on the market. There's no aftermarket support. A lot of other Nissans, there are aftermarket window motors available for the regulators, but unfortunately Z32 has quite a unique setup, and there doesn't seem to be aftermarket support that I could find. So I thought, well, I might tear this motor down, because surely it's just an electric motor, there can't be that much to it. So I did that. So we'll get this bag here open, which has a new regulator in it, but it has my motor attached to it. So as you can see, guys, exact same unit, other than the fact that this one here is a brand spanker. That is my motor. It's all been cleaned up, that's attached to it now, and it's going really well. So what I did, I worked out how to get these motors apart. They're not actually that easy to get apart, but they're not impossible either. They just take a little bit of frigging around. There's some screws on the back here to get sort of the casing off the motor, but you can't just unscrew those and pull it all apart, or you'll kind of tear the thing to pieces. You have to be very careful how you get this this motor apart, or you could pretty much destroy it. So anyway, long story short, I've had the motor apart, I've cleaned it all out, I've greased all the mechanism inside, and there's like a ring and pinion mechanism in it. There's a pinion that comes up through here off the motor, and there's a ring gear inside of here that it drives, like a, you know, worm drive, like a ring and pinion, like a rack and pinion, but without a rack, with a gear, you know. So yeah, you guys know what I mean, like a differential. So that's the mechanical side of it, and then the electrical side of it, it's just a normal brushed motor. But the problem with this is that the brush holders are built into the motor, and there's no real way to replace them, and there was no brush that I could find that could be modified to fit in the brush holders. Now, maybe that's just me not being able to find what I need, but I searched bloody everywhere, and I literally couldn't find anything that would fit. But the brushes that were in there, even though they are worn, they still appear to me to have quite a long service life left. So I had no qualms about just stripping this all apart, cleaning all the old dried out grease out of it, cleaning all the brush dust from the carbon brushes wearing down over the years, putting contact cleaner in there, testing all the armature and all the windings because they have to be tested just to make sure you've got no dead spots. So yeah, quite a bit of work in doing that, with fully tearing it down and testing it all and cleaning it. But the beauty of it is now that when I run them both side by side, the passenger side motor regulator combination and the driver side motor regulator combination, they run at the same speed and it feels like the same load. Obviously I won't know until the glass is in, but this one was obviously slower to move just on the bench compared to the left hand side, which it is now just as good. So I reckon that's a win. If it's your driver's side door, I would replace the regulator, just because you can't replace the rollers. The rollers will be pretty shagged. The tracks will be full of shit. There's a lot of work in getting it all clean, which I found out because I stupidly tried to get it clean without realising how worn it was first. For the cost, it's a few $100, but you know, on the grand scale of things, it's not that big a deal. And this motor needs to be stripped down and repaired and at least had a look at. So what I thought I'd do is I've ordered an extra regulator over here just because of the massive weight. And I'll throw that up on my website. I've only got the one. So if you want a regulator, upperhandperformanceproducts.com.au. As I said, I have only the one, but what I'm also offering is a service. If you send me your motor, I will tear your motor down and do a bit of an assessment on it and give you a bit of a rundown whether it's worth going any further with and properly cleaning it all out and giving it sort of a minor rebuild, or whether you're probably better off maybe trying to source another one. And that really all boils down to how badly worn the brush set is inside of it. If the brushes have still got a little bit of meat on them, there's no reason why it can't be all just properly serviced. But if the brushes are really, really worn down to the point of there being almost nothing left of them, you may be better off trying to get hold of another second-hand one and then strip that down and have a look at the condition of that until you can find one that's got decent brushes in it. Like I say, replacement cost of around $800. It's worth it to find a decent second-hand one while there's still some around on the market. You know, and things could be good. Now, what my thoughts are on this as well is being able to source a mechanism from the US would probably be ideal, because in the US this door is their passenger door. So the regulator would be in a probably almost unused condition, just like my passenger side is on the other side. And if you're in the US, it probably would pay to do the opposite. Try and find a regulator and motor from an Australian or a Japanese or European Z32 300zx, and you would find the same thing. Now, I've actually done the same thing with some of my trim pieces on the door, which I'll go through later on the video, because I couldn't find decent second-hand versions in Australia because they were all flogged out being the driver's door, but I was able to find some almost mint examples in the US for the reasons I've just laid out. So even if you're not looking at the regulators, particularly the motors, like because shipping is a real thing nowadays. It never used to be that big a deal, but it really is now. So it's motors that are the problem. As I say, the regulators aren't that expensive. They just take a little bit of a while to get in. So if you want a motor, like say a right-hand side motor, and you're in Australia, I'd probably go hunting in the US. If you're in the US, I'd probably go hunting in Australia, Japan, or in Europe. So anyway, that's what I've been up to with all this sort of stuff, and that's what I've deduced from having all this stuff torn apart and frigging around with it. So hopefully when I get all this back together, my driver's door glass should move up and down like a brand new car, and it should also have a lot of reliability, which was a really big concern, because when I drive, I drive my cars a lot, and I go reasonable distances in them. I don't want to be stuck somewhere on a day trip or a weekend trip and not being able to get a window up or down or something like that. That would just absolutely be terrible, particularly if you had bad weather. So it was paramount for me to make sure that my window regulators and everything are 100%. So that being said, one of the first things we need to do is get this regulator, this guy here, back in the door. This one here, that's going in the bin now. There's nothing on that we can keep. So yeah, let's get into it. Damn. Probably pretty good. Time to drop the glass in, guys. Bit of grease in the tracks and we should be good to go. Nuts in the pocket, a little bit of blue Loctite, just me being extra anal as usual. Couple of stops to fit. Actually, once again I might throw a little bit of Loctite on that. Reason I'm being so keen to put Loctite on stuff, when I pulled all this apart, half of the nuts had fallen off everything and were sitting in the bottom of the doors, which is part of the reason why the windows didn't work real well on this thing. So I just don't want that to be happening again. Like I said, blue Loctite's no big deal. Just sort of gums up the threads a bit and stops stuff vibrating loose. You can get it apart pretty easy. Stop on this side. Man, I hate working on the ground like this. Unfortunately, I need it on the ground. I can't really put it on the hoist. For doing other things, I really need to be able to get these doors open right up like this and push the car around a bit, you know. Anyhow, let's give her a bit of a wind and see how we go. We probably want to go down first, I reckon. Looking pretty good. Geez, that moved well then. I guess you'd expect that with all the new bits. Isn't that fantastic? I think I would have made a proper connector up for this, wouldn't you? I think we're looking pretty good. Any final adjustment, like you can adjust these guides here that guide the glass up and down. There's one adjustment here on the top for in and out. There's another adjustment here on the top for in and out, just so that you can get it positioned right between your outer moulding and your door trim on the inside there. So if you find it's too close one way or the other, you can wind it in and out. You'll see this nut has a screw in the middle of it. So you just loosen the nut off and turn the screw to wind the whole thing in and out, then just nip it back up. So yeah, that's your adjustment. Obviously your stops have adjustment on them as well. These look pretty good. I just put everything back where it was initially, and it seems to be working alright. Alright, that's pretty bloody good. I think I'm quite happy with that. See what happens when I go to shut the door. So, looks like we need a little bit of adjustment, guys. I'll just do that off camera. But for now, we'll head up to the bench, and I'll have a bit of a chat to you about the trim pieces that go on the door. So just quickly, guys, something else that relates to that area that we're working on there. This is your upper roller guide cover that goes on the top of the door on the back side. And that's where your roller goes up and down. You'll notice from this that the rubber and everything that the guide sits in, it's all you know, perished with age and kind of broken away. Now I thought, yeah, no worries, I'll just buy a new one of those from Nissan. But again, there's something that is frightfully expensive. And I thought, no, there's got to be a better way. I'll have a look for a good second-hand one. But all the ones I came across here in Australia are in the same condition. They're all pretty knackered in this same area, and I guess that makes sense, being that it's the driver's door here in Australia, and you know, it gets a lot of use going up and down and all that sort of stuff, and it's probably sat down and been in the sun quite often with the window down, which would sort of lead to premature perishing of this. So I looked online for second-hand ones, and all the ones that I saw for sale second-hand on eBay were in as bad, if not worse, condition than this. And there's, you know, obviously there's no point in replacing it with one that's in just as bad a condition. And I thought, well, going back to what we discussed earlier about the US being left-hand drive and us being right-hand drive, I thought their right-hand door versions of this would all be in good condition, just like my passenger door one is. You know, it looks mint, it looks brand new. So I jumped on eBay and I had a look in the US, and there were a few guys selling second-hand ones of these reasonably cheaply with reasonably cheap postage that were in perfect condition. So that's what I did. I've got one here that I got from the US on eBay that's going to be going on the Fairlady. Now, it's in here somewhere in my box of these things. That looks like the one. Alright, so this is the one that I picked up. And look at that, guys. How friggin' good is that? It is in absolutely perfect condition. So there's the trick, guys. If you're in Australia and you're in the same boat as me, with this being pretty rooted, jump on eBay, have a look in the US, and I guarantee you'll find something pretty good. And they're really seem to be no more expensive than buying one here in Australia, just because they have a lot more volume of this kind of stuff. And I guess if you're in the US and you have the opposite problem with your left-hand side one being knackered, have a look in Australia on eBay, because you'll find the same thing. All of our left-hand side ones are all in really good condition. So yeah, I'm about to go and throw this on the Fairlady. Let's go and whack it on, eh? So hopefully this should just go straight on. Yep. That is our position right there. Plastic clips. Alrighty. And that should be that. Maybe. Ish. Alright, that looks pretty good. Pretty bloody good indeed. Certainly an improvement over this one, guys. Certainly an improvement over that. Beautiful. Alright, back to the bench. So guys, that's just one more piece of the puzzle complete. I am very, very happy with this. I think the combination of replacing all the glass rollers plus the new regulator, which has, oh God, what have we got? 4 rollers on it itself, you know, which can't be replaced independently, and cleaning out all the tracks and servicing the motor has really, really paid off. That door glass moves really quickly up and down. It seems like it's under almost no load. It's smooth. You know, I couldn't ask for better. It feels like a brand new door now. So I'll get stuck into the passenger side one. I won't worry about filming that because it's obviously exactly the same as this one. Hopefully I'll have all the glass going back in this thing in another couple of weeks. Brand new windscreen, replacing the rear screen, and you know, the quarter glasses. They'll be going back in with all new mouldings and everything, of course. And as I say, if you are in Australia, I do have one more of these driver side window regulators that I got from Japan. I bought an extra one just because it was so hard to get. So if you want one of these guys, there's one there, and I also have the option for, if you want to ship me your motor, I can tear your motor down, service it, and give you a bit of a report on it. Reattach the motor to the regulator and then send it back to you. So, but as I say, I'm only keeping one in stock, and it takes about 2 months to get another one. Alright, so here's my, this is the passenger side plastic piece that we just did. As I said, it's in absolutely perfect condition, nothing at all wrong with that. Again, being it's a passenger side, it just doesn't get any use. So that's about it for this video, guys. You know, not really a super exciting video, but if you are in the process of doing any work on your doors, any work on your windows, you know, doing your glass rollers and all that sort of stuff, like I say, there is already a video I have up on doing the glass rollers. I'll leave a link to it up there. And I think it is really imperative to at least clean out all your tracks and get a good look at your regulator, and have a look at the rollers in your regulator, the pivot point in the middle, and see how worn it all is, and also, you know, have a good look at your motor and see if it's struggling at all, or if you think it needs a bit of a service. Alright guys, so as always, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Always a bloody pleasure to have you here. If you like the video, remember to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment if you can, because it helps me with the algorithm. And as always guys, I'll bloody well see you on the next one. Cheers.